Lesson 11 already? I have to tell you, lesson 11 is one of my favorites. Will you communicate with me? See, love is a feeling. Marriage, on the other hand, is a contract, an invisible contract. Both partners bring to it expectations about what they want and don't want, what they're willing to give and not willing to give. Most often, those are out of our awareness. It's not even an idea that we entertain briefly. Most marriage partners don't even know they expected something until they realize that they're not getting it. The range of these failed expectations fall anywhere between various ways to make love and basic communication, not to mention the management of shared assets and financial responsibilities. You see, like everything else in life, the past is very much present in all of our relationships. Our expectations in relationships are conditioned by our previous experience. It may simply be the nature of learning, but things that happen in the present are assimilated by means of what has happened in the past. This is especially true of our emotions. Every time we have an experience in the present, we are also experiencing it in the past. Emotional memory exists outside of time. It's obvious that two partners are conditioned by two different pasts. But inside the relationship, it is less obvious. And that leads to all kinds of misunderstandings, disagreements, disappointments, and anger that things are not going exactly as expected. The upshot is statements like, I can't understand women. Who knows what a woman wants? And you can never please a man. All of the classic complaints reflect hidden expectations that have never surfaced to the point where they could be discussed, examined, or kept or discarded. To add insult to injury, when one partner is upset, the other often compounds it unintentionally. When, for example, a woman is unhappy, men often feel they are expected to charge out and fix something. But what she really wants is for her partner to put his arm around her and hold her, to soothe her, to say simply, I'm sorry you feel bad. It is as simple and basic as that. But instead of moving toward her, he moves away. And if, when you are upset and you don't get what you want from the person you are closest to, then you are not going to feel loved. Men, too, I hasten to say, have the same basic need. But they erect defenses against it for fear it will return them to a state of helplessness, such as one they maybe experienced as a child. At the heart of intimacy, then, is empathy, understanding, and compassion. These are the humanizing feelings. It is bad enough that they are in short supply among distressed couples. Yet, I have observed that certain careers pose substantial roadblocks to intimacy because the training involves education, not in humanization, but in dehumanization. At the top of the list is law, built primarily on the adversarial process. It actively discourages understanding and compassion in favor of destroying an opponent. Careers in the military and in engineering are also dismissive of feelings and emotion. Men and women who bring what they learn from such a work environment into a love relationship may find that it can't survive. I know personally, having worked for 10 years in human resources, how some environments in the workforce encourage you to shut off your emotions. Don't bring that to work. But isn't it interesting that for many of us, we're spending more than 40 hours of prime time in the workplace. So, what are you to do at the end of the day when you come home? An understanding of intimacy has its own logic, but it runs counter to conventional wisdom and most brands of psychology. They hold that to understand the nature and to improve relationships, the proper place is to start with the self. The thinking is that you need to understand yourself before you can confide in a partner, but I found just the opposite to be true. An exploration of the self is indeed absolutely essential to attaining or rebuilding a sense of intimacy. Most of the disappointments that drive our actions and reactions in relationships are constructed with expectations that are not only hidden from our partners, but also ourselves. From our families of origin and past relationship experiences, we acquire systems of belief that direct our behavior outside of our own awareness. It is not possible to change a relationship without bringing this belief system into our awareness. But a man or a woman exploring their personal history experiences some powerful feelings that, in the absence of a partner to talk to, may make one feel worse rather than better. So, the very first step a couple must take to rebuild intimacy is to learn to express their own thoughts and feelings and carefully listen to each other. A partner who knows how to listen to you can then be on hand when you open up your past. Exploration of the self is an activity often relegated to psychotherapy. In that case, a psychotherapist knows how to listen with empathy. But that is not necessarily the way, and at best is a luxury, affordable only by a few. It's not only possible for desirable, it's not only possible, okay. It's not only possible, but desirable for couples of all economic strata to choose to confide in each other and build a relationship with a life partner rather than with a paid confidant. Both partners have an ongoing need to open up the past as well as share the present. But there are skills that have to be learned so that such interaction can be safe. Be safe and not increase the problem. Both partners need to learn how to listen without judging or giving unwanted advice. Disappointment in a partner's ability to hear is what often sends people to a psychotherapist in the first place. All of us bring to our intimate relationships certain expectations that we have of no one else. On the positive side, they usually involve undivided attention, words and gestures of love and caring, loyalty, constancy, sex, compassion, agreement, companionship, encouragement, friendship, fidelity, honesty, trust, respect, and acceptance. We are all too alert to the possibility that we will instead find their exact opposites. If we are not aware of our own expectations and how they are affected by history, there is no hope of expressing them to a partner so that he or she has a shot at meeting them. More often than not, we engage instead in mind reading. Mind reading is often related to past disappointing relationship experiences. We tend to expect what we previously had the opportunity to learn. We make assumptions based on our history. And when in personal history, there are people or situations that were the source of heartache, resentment, or anxiety, then any action by a partner in the present that is similar in some way often serves as a reminder and triggers an intense emotional reaction. I call this emotional allergy. As with other forms of prior sensationalization, the result tends to be an explosive reaction without counter attack and is typically incomprehensible to a current partner. If I had to summarize how I change the hidden experiences that work to distort a relationship, I would boil it down to a few basic rules. So here's the first one. If you expect a partner to understand what you need, then you have to tell him or her, remember, an expectation is not a communication. Number two, you cannot expect your partner to be sensitive and understand exactly how you feel about something unless you're able to communicate to him or her how you feel in the first place. Remember, communication is a function of love, and nothing is possible in your relationship until you find a way to communicate that which works for both of you. Number three, if you don't understand or like what your partner is doing, ask. Ask about it and why he or she is doing it, and vice versa. Explore, talk, don't assume, and don't allow offenses to separate you from each other. This is something that you have to be determined to cultivate in your relationship. And I promise you, the rewards are endless. Next, expressing your feelings about a given situation and asking for your partner's honesty in return is the most significant way to discover truth in your relationship. Instead, most communication between intimates is nonverbal and leans heavily on mind reading. The only thing you have to go on is your own internal information, which could easily be skewed by any number of factors. This is also why genuine responses are so important. Telling your partner what you think he or she wants to hear instead of what is really going on complicates and postpones a useful solution to the problem. Confiding is more than being able to reveal yourself to another. It is knowing with absolute certainty that what you think and feel is being heard and understood by your partner. Instead, we tend to be passive listeners, picking up on those messages that have a direct bearing on ourselves, rather than listening for how things are for our partner. Listening with empathy is a learned skill. It has two crucial ingredients: undivided attention and feeling what your partner feels. Never assume that you know something unless it is clearly stated by your partner. And you need to understand fully what your partner's thoughts and feelings mean to him or her. You can't assume that you know. This will lead to defenses. Instead of focusing on the effects of your partner's words on you, pay attention instead to your partner's emotions, facial expression, and levels of tension. The single biggest barrier to such empathetic listening in our self-interest and self-protective mechanisms, we anticipate and fill in the blanks. One of the simple truths of relationships is that often enough, all we need to do to resolve a problem is to listen to our partner, hear them out, not just passively listen, but truly hear what is in the mind and, most importantly, in the heart. What more often happens is that we experience threats to our self-esteem or feel stressed. We resort to styles of communication that usually lead to more of a problem than the problem itself. The styles of communication that we resort to during stress then often prevent real contact from happening. If your partner tends to be a blamer, you will distance yourself. You develop a rational style of relating, but no feelings are ever dealt with. Not only is no love experienced, but at the emotional level, nothing can get resolved. Most people tend to react to stress with one or more of four Most people tend to react to stress with one or more of four communication styles. The first one is placating. The placator is ingratiating, eager to please, apologetic, and a yes man or woman. The placator says things like, whatever you want, or never mind about me, it's okay. It's a case of peace at any price. The price for the placator is worthlessness, because the placator has difficulty expressing anger and holds so many feelings inside, he or she tends toward depression, and as studies show, may be prone to illness. Placators need to know it is okay to express anger, to speak about their feelings, to be heard. The next one is blaming. The blamer is a fault finder who criticizes relentlessly and speaks in generalizations. You never do anything right. You're just like your mother or father. Inside, the blamer feels unworthy or unlovable, angry at the anticipation he or she will not be getting what is wanted. Given a problem, the best defense is a good defense. The blamer is unable to deal with or express pain or fear. Blamers need to be able to speak on their own behalf without indicting others in the process. The next one is computing. The computer is super reasonable, calm, and collected, never admits mistakes, and expects people to conform and perform. The computer says things like, upset? I'm not upset. Why do you say I'm upset? Afraid of emotion, he or she prefers facts and statistics. I don't reveal my emotions, and I'm not interested in anyone else's. Computers need someone to ask how they feel about specific things. That is their choice and their access. Next, distracting. The distractor resorts to irrelevancies under stress and avoids direct eye contact and direct answers. Quick to change the subject, he or she will say, what problem? Let's have Sam and Bridget over tomorrow. Confronting the problem might lead to a fight, which could be dangerous. So, distractors need to know that they are safe, not helpless, that problems can be solved and conflicts resolved. Each style is a unique response to pain, anger, or fear, which keeps us from understanding each other. Knowing that the next time you find yourself resorting to blame, you can conclude there is something painful or scary bothering you and try to figure out what it is. That's how we begin to lay the foundation of doing our own work. If it's your partner who is blaming, you can conclude he or she is possibly not intending to be aggressive or mean, but probably afraid of some development. What's needed is to find a way to make it safe, to talk about the worry and the concerns. Find out what is bothering him or her. How then can you say what is bothering you or express what you really need in a way that your partner can hear so that your message could be understood? This is a basic step in building the relationship you want. For this, the daily temperature reading is particularly helpful. You'll find that in your lessons. After partners have been heard and understood, they may need to work on forgiveness. Of course, it may seem that some things are unforgivable, and each partner has to decide if that line has been crossed and the relationship is worth more than what you can't let go of. If it is, there has to be a recognition that can change the past. No relationship can recover from the past disappointments and mature unless both partners can find a way to let go of grudges. This is one of the most important relationship skills couples can develop. This is not just an exercise of emotions. There is a cognitive restructuring taking place. One partner is probably for the first time learning the meaning of another's experience. That by itself enhances their closeness. All it requires is listening with empathy, and the experience becomes a source of pleasure for both of them. At the same time, there is a conceptual understanding of what each is doing that deprives the relationship of pleasure and what they need to do to make it better. Because the past continually asserts itself in present experience, both partners in a relationship are obligated to explore themselves, their beliefs, needs, and hopes, and even uniqueness of personality through their family's emotional history. Most people operate in the present using messages and beliefs silently transmitted to them in their family of origin. Or they may be living out invisible loyalties, making decisions based on the needs of their partner or present relationship, or even their own needs, but on some indebtedness that was incurred sometime in the past. Particularly at issue are messages we acquire about ourselves, about life and love, trust, confiding, and closeness. Those things we take as truths about love, life, and trust are beliefs we had the chance to learn from specific people and situations in the past. It is on this information that we make the private decision to ourselves. Nobody cares. It doesn't matter what I think or say. You're not interested in me. If, for example, you grew up in a family where your mother or father drank or was depressed or was otherwise emotionally unavailable, you may have drawn the conclusion that no one was really interested in you. It is vital to know the lineage of our beliefs because we transfer onto our partners what we were dealt in the past. One of the decisions often made unwittingly is I don't trust that anybody is really going to be any better to me. It can become a way of saying, I'm not going to get even for the way I was treated. You wind up punishing your partner for what someone else actually did, for what you were not able to receive, of what you believe you were not enough for. That is the point when we transfer the hidden expectations, especially the negative ones from our history, from any or all of our previous close relationships, whether to parents, siblings, former spouses, ex-boyfriends or friends, ex-girlfriends. The problem is the person to whom you hand the bill is unaware of the account books in your head. The result is endless misunderstanding and disturbance. In fact, the attitudes you hold tend to be outside of your own awareness. You yourself don't even realize what it is that you're doing and that you're still hurting. I believe that they can be found through personal exploration. It is one of the core emotional transactions of marriage, and making it explicit is one of the psychological tasks of achieving intimacy. Otherwise, you find yourself thinking of your partner as the enemy, someone to hurt, someone to get even with, to punish. And because you don't recognize the ledger as the motivating power behind your behavior, you rationalize. You seek reasons to treat your partner as the enemy. you are really just evening up the balance on someone else's account. Every couple needs to trace the source of behaviors and attitudes, many of which turn out to have been handed down through their families of origin. Much unhappiness in relationships can be traced to the fact that one partner learned as a family rule never to express anger or even perhaps happiness. Many people grow up learning to subjugate their own needs and feelings to those of others. Still, the feelings influence present relationships, and until they can be brought into awareness and spoken, it is very difficult to improve current relationships. Once a couple has done this and discovers where their beliefs come from, they can review them together and decide which legacies they want to keep and which they'd rather discard. They each work out their personal history so they do not punish the one who's here now. I know this was a lot to absorb, and I look forward to hearing more of what you discover as we continue in the lessons. Bye for now.